All right, here we are back again. We have our watercolors set up. Just have a little palette. We've got a clean spot, which is good. And the idea this week is thinking about using two colors. The comic I made last week was one color, it was purple color. And thinking about black not as a color, but as something that makes your color even nicer. So I'm just gonna use the same comic every time, and it's really hard to see, but I put a tiny bit of blue on that tea kettle. You can kind of see that. Um, but it was before I was really done drawing. So now I'm gonna try two colors, and I'm gonna do blue and orange because I think they work really well. And instead of mixing those colors, I'm just gonna pick them out of my pan. So I want to use this orange, and I think I want to use this blue. I'm not totally sure, but I think that's the one. And it's always a good idea to use your lightest color first. So I'm going to do orange first. And you can make it really, really saturated, really, really bright orange. But I have to think about how I want to color this. You can think about things that might be that color. Like I'm more orange than blue, you could argue. So maybe I would be a light orange. So that might be a good place to start. There's an opportunity in the background here to make this a really saturated orange or saturated blue, depending on how exaggerated I want that yawn to be. And this is a different lighting moment with the light coming in through the blinds and the rim lighting here. So there's different opportunities for each thing. I still think I could add a shadow here, but I think the way I want to do this is that I'll have, oh, my hand, I keep tapping it. I'll have more blue than anything until the very end. I'll have kind of like a sunrise, maybe. Maybe that last panel I'll have the most orange, and the first panel will be the most blue. So knowing that, start light to dark. I just dipped my brush in my water. It's a little hard to see, but there's like about an inch of water or less. So there's the brush. That's not super drippy or anything, but it's just enough to get the palette wet. And this is relatively the color I want, so I'm not afraid to mix it here. So once you have pigment, water, put it on the palette, you want to add a little bit more water just so you're not going too dark too fast. And the only way you really know what color you have is by putting on the paper. If you're nervous to put it on something, you can always like dab in the margins and see what you got. And then if, let's just go crazy. Don't be afraid. What if I did this and I thought, oh my goodness, this is way too orange. I'm always doing funny things with the face. I feel like last week I had a lot of purple on my face. What if this happens and this is too dark? I look like I have a sunburn. It doesn't look that bad. You can always kind of rinse it off a little bit. Spread it around. That's one option. Just add more water. So that softens it quite a bit. Well, maybe I'll do that. It's still kind of dark. If you really think it's like a little too wet, you can dab the water. I'm lucky that this ink is quite water fast. So when it's still wet, you can use cloth or paper towel. This is a Kleenex. This is what I have. So it'll still have an artifact of color, so it won't go immediately back to white. But if it's still wet and you add a little bit of water, you can get a little bit of it off. Now this is mostly dried. I can tap it and it still feels damp. But the longer you wait, it's harder to scrub that color off. But it's still possible. But also, I don't know, I think the reason why watercolor is so terrifying is that we can't erase. So let's not think about erasing. Let's go boldly forward. Okay, so I'm gonna just have my mixing area, and I didn't even plan to paint that face quite so soon, but here we are. Really, this is what I wanted to do, was just add some skin tone. So you can think about what's called local color, which is the color in real life something might be. And like I said, I think I might be more orange than blue. And, oh, look, I forgot to ink my pants. I probably should do that before I forget. The one thing I can tell you is that if it's the right tone, if it's really dark or really light or somewhere in between, it doesn't necessarily matter what color you make something, but I do think this comic's gonna make more sense if I have to choose between blue and orange rather. I think it's gonna look better if I make my skin kind of orange. So I dipped my brush back in. Ooh. And just anything, you get one color on your brush that you think works, and you're like, let me put that wherever I think it works. I remember wanting a sunrise here, and it's okay to work a little bit lighter, and then I can figure out how intense I want it. The other thing is if you've already experimented, see what you liked about your previous experiment. Like, I really liked how saturated that was, and I was so brave at just throwing down the color there, so I might try that again. And you can always change your drawing too. I thought the yawn here was funny. Originally the mouth wasn't open. And I was like, let me change the face. And I like that shadow, so I want to bring that back with the blue. So is there any other place I could add orange? I think the table might be nice if I make it a little bit darker. You just kind of go, every time you make a decision, your other decisions are informed by that. Like a choose your own adventure. And you really can't lose. It's really okay. So that looks pretty good. And maybe because the table's orange here, it'd be orange here. You can change the intensity of the color depending on how close or how far away the camera is. I think like a medium orange is fine. This is actually, even though it's a light color, relatively, it's got a lot of pigment, so it's kind of bright. And if you see something like that, you can kind of drag it to the end. You can dab it. Sometimes people drag it back into a place you can't really see it. I might be making it worse. But it's relatively forgiving. I don't think watercolor's famous for being very forgiving, but I think it kind of is. And then remember we noticed in the ceiling on the last panel it was really dark. I want to try that again, just because I thought it was cool. So this is me trying to make this even darker. This could be a terrible idea. Maybe it's not a good idea, because now the whole thing's orange. Who knows? But I also wonder, I'm going to have access to that blue later, and I know if I layer them, maybe it'll be like a brown I can make there. That doesn't look terrible. And that sounds like I have really low standard, but okay, I'm making, you can't really see my mix, but this is all it looks like. I think that's a pretty dark orange. If you feel like your brush is too wet too, you can dab it, but I think it's kind of nice if the brush is a little wet. You could also start with the darkest areas, like theoretically the cheeks and the nose are the darkest, and maybe under the neck. Again, now I look like I have some type of skin problem, but that's okay. So I can always grab a little bit of water and tease out the edges of that if I think it's too strong. I also think it is a little darker than I want it to be, but when I add the blue, that blue is really, really, really good. Maybe to make myself feel better, let's try the blue. I'm gonna do this blue. There's two of them. And I really should have cleaned this area, but I'm gonna use it over here. So I wonder how dark this is. I'm adding a little bit of water. I'm gonna put it in the background. If you're never sure of something and you don't want to do a spot test like the bottom, you can always put it in a background area. So I erased the pencil, but I can still kind of see the edges. So I'm trying that. Ooh, it's so messy. That's okay. I think the only thing I wanted here was to make sure the spaces between the panels look nice. And I'm kind of going in a hurry. I do think we read comics really quickly, and no one will be able to tell if something is a little messy. That doesn't look bad. Not bad. We have this artifact here. Sometimes you can re-wet something. Oh no, it's gotten a little green in it. I don't know how I did that. But don't be too fussy. I think if you keep going over and over and over, it looks like it's suffering. And you don't want to suffer, and you don't want anyone to know that your painting is suffering. Okay, so that's not bad. Now where else can I put blue? I made big threats to put a big Now, I was so excited. I did this really well last week, so let me see if I can copy myself. I wouldn't even remembered how to do that. I think I can put some here. Now we're thinking about maybe layering it a little bit. So now we have this really pretty brown shadow. Isn't that nice? Grabbing a little more paint. Putting a shadow here, it looks like. You can always make it a little bit darker, but it is hard to go lighter once you put it down. That's not very fancy. That's easy, right? What did I do last week? So we had a very saturated shirt. What color should my shirt be? I kind of want to... Oh, I forgot to do... Man. I forgot to put stripes. Character continuities also. This is funny. I have stripes here. And the window in the last panel is sort of like that. Alright, so now I did that too fast. What else can I do? Maybe the background of that second panel needs some blue, right? The idea being we're going to try to just get rid of most of the blue. And then, again, I'm like, what did I do last week? I guess it was all the same color. Like this. And I use my left hand, so hopefully that's good for you to see. It's hard to see. Sometimes I block what I'm doing. And you can't, again, I need to zoom out for the next video, I think. So what if you start painting and then run out of, ooh, look at that. See, I waited. I inked and then didn't wait long enough. If you run out of your color and then go back and mix some more, it's pretty forgiving. Again, I'm kind of doing a messy job, but it still looks okay. All right, so we just want to cover it. And I think I can put a little more orange here. So when you're swapping from color to color, it's a good idea. Make sure your brush is really, really clean. It's even better if you use 2 small containers of water, but I'm just using 1 because I'm not working very dark. All right. Oh, what did now I'm like copying myself again. What did I do last time? Okay. I'll try to do that again. I don't really know what I did. And I want to leave a little bit of white. I think that's important when you're working with comics, to let your black and white do some work. All right, so this isn't the most amazing thing I've ever done, but it's pretty good. Let's see. And I could go even darker. So you can always let this dry and work back in, but now you've made a claim to what colors you want things to be. Anything you think, oh, I could leave that white or dark. And maybe to make the contrast behind here a little bit darker with some... I'm also curious to know how dark my blue could be. So I might try that this week since I didn't try it last week. I was being conservative, I think. So this is supposed to be a doorway, but I don't know if it's making the image confusing. I hope not. I also don't want to make it too dark because I want people to see the little cat drawing. Maybe I could make this a little bit darker. A little bit. Alright, I like that. I don't know if I want to make the inside of the mouth too orange or red, but there are opportunities here. I didn't really do it to make to layer color. I kind of do it here, so I wonder if there's another moment I could do that. Maybe beneath the desk. There's supposed to be a desk. So it's kind of purple almost, or brown. It's mostly blue, and it's quite messy. That's okay. Then maybe I can make a shadow on the wall to make it different from the window. Oh, sorry for the siren. All right, so what do we think? It's not bad. Now, you know, I try to make these videos quick and then I get excited and I want to add more. Maybe here. Now that looks a little silly. I liked it better before I did that. So sometimes you can try to even it out. You could take it off with some type of tissue, a clean side. It's a little messy, but you can take the highlights out, so that's one way to do it. All right, so I think if I were to change anything, I might, I don't know, maybe do something different with the hair. But I don't know if I want to make that hair really orange, but maybe I will. Just have a different color. Because everything feels like it's the same, and I want the skin to look different. So my hair's not really orange in real life, but it is darker than my face. So that would be a good idea. And you have to be a little patient to let this dry some. But I think when it dries, I could even layer the blue in it, which would be nice if I think, oh, I don't like the red, I want something more like brown. And if you want something to be darker, I'm not using a lot of pigment, and I think you could use more if you're braver than I am. I'm using a pretty big brush. I think this is a 6 or an 8. So if you're finding it's hard to put detail in, you can always get a smaller brush. But so this was last week, one color. And this is this week's experiment, 2 colors. I feel like there's more space. It feels almost like it's more real. I don't know. I don't know about some of these choices, but it's not bad. I like the variety. And thinking about how to make something really dark or really light is a really good way to approach your work. So that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you make a really nice comic that you like. And I'll see you soon. Bye.